back in the day with Matthew Broderick and Meg Ryan, I think, and it was this like kind of dark comedy situation where Matthew Broderick's character was in love with Meg Ryan and she was trying to get away from him, but he was just obsessed with her. And at one point, I remember this scene, and it just has burned in my brain. I've thought about it maybe once every month for the rest of my life since I saw it in high school. And it's Matthew Broderick, and he's sitting at this table trying to convince Meg Ryan's character that he loves her so much. And he says, "How much do I love you?" He says, "Do I love you enough to break my own finger?" And they're at this dinner table and he just like breaks his finger. He's like, "Oh, that's love." And I remember thinking, that's crazy, that's nuts. And I remember thinking, wait, what's the difference between that and the cross? Because we say like, well, here's God proves his love for us here and dying on the cross. Like, what's the difference? And the difference is this. What Matthew Broderick's character did was arbitrary. I'm going to prove my love for you by suffering unnecessarily. The cross is intrinsic. The love and sacrifice connected in the cross is what? Jesus didn't pursue the cross. He pursued us. And the way he had to love us was through that road of the cross. I was talking to a young woman recently, and she shared that both of her parents are very ill. And she said, some days it's really easy to just avoid going over to their house. Some days it's just really easy to just stay away because I know it cost me something. She says, some days I'm really inclined to be captive by comfort. But she says, but I know this. I know whenever I go over there, just to be with my parents and be with them in their sickness, it's always better than if I avoid it. And to put to death that God of comfort and replace it with real love, even though it's uncomfortable, it's always worth it. Because oftentimes comfort leads to complacency, and the people that we should be loving, we're not able to. Look at the gospel today. Here's the rich man and Lazarus, and this Lazarus is right in front of the rich man, but because he is captive to his comfort, he doesn't even notice. He doesn't even see him, doesn't even do anything. So this is the last thing. So here's the question. If comfort is the God of our generation, then what do we do with this? And I'd say this, we do what Christians have done for generations. In fact, St. Paul writes it to Timothy today. St. Paul writing to Timothy, he says this, he says, okay, compete well for the faith. He doesn't say glide into heaven, he says compete well for the faith. Lay hold of eternal life to which you were called when you made that noble confession in the presence of many witnesses. Basically, if we have a false God, we do what every generation has done, we put that false God to death. In fact, there's this term we use in Catholic circles called mortification. Mortification comes from that word in Spanish, like morir, to die. When we do mortifications, we're putting something to death. And sometimes we're putting our fear to death, sometimes we're putting our self-love to death. In this case, we're putting our idol of comfort to death. So what do? Well, you could call them misogis if you want to. We can call them mortifications. Where on a daily basis, weekly basis, we can say, okay, what's a small way that I can choose this active mortification of something like, here's a fast. Maybe it's from food, maybe it's from drink, maybe it's from media, maybe it's from screens, maybe it is cold showers. And to be able to say, okay, each day, or regularly at least, I'm gonna choose some kind of active mortification. And in doing that, what I'm gonna do is this, I am not pursuing discomfort. I'm pursuing God's will. And I'm demonstrating that the fear of discomfort has no place in my life. Or even this, not only active mortifications, but another thing called passive mortifications, which basically are the inconveniences that come to us. To be able to see that person who got in our way, like, okay, Lord, I accept that, inconvenient, no problem. Okay, it's hotter than I like, all right, no problem. It's colder than I like, okay, no problem. This is a farther walk than I was prepared for. No problem. It's that inconvenience that comes our way that hopefully wakes us up from complacency and helps us not only remember that God is God, that people are around us that He's called us to love, and that we are called to not underlive our lives. The invitation is to refuse to dread discomfort and to pursue God's will with no fear of difficulty. I think it's true that comfort has become the God of our generation, that we don't have to worship that God. Our goal is God himself. And we're called to escape captivity to comfort and to no longer fear and no longer dread discomfort.